This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A 19-year-old man has been arrested and charged after police say he was involved in a hit and run that left a cyclist dead. The crash happened on a popular bike route at Wellington Crescent and Coburn Street, just days ahead of the start of Bike Week. Cycling advocates held a memorial and a protest at the site this afternoon. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us more on what happened.
People at the protest are devastated and outraged. More than 100 people have showed up with their bikes and their signs to honor the cyclist who was hit by a car here at Wellington and Coburn. Now, as you can see behind me, the cyclists have shut down the intersection. Many of them told us that this is a stretch where they've had close calls. Cycling advocate Peguis says not enough is being done to keep vulnerable road users safe.
If you talk to any of the residents around here or people right behind me here who are joined together here, they'll tell you that the cars are going too fast. Drivers are going too fast here. It impacts the whole neighborhood. It doesn't feel like a neighborhood. It feels like, you know, an overdrive.
Winnipeg police say the accident happened around 7 in the morning Thursday. Police say the 61-year-old cyclist was on his way to work when he was hit by a white BMW that did not stop at the scene. The victim died in hospital. Constable Jason McGill says the driver was going too fast.
These types of tragedies are so preventable. I mean, we talk about this one on Wellington. Clearly, this individual was having no regard for public safety whatsoever.
He says police tracked down the vehicle responsible to the East Kildonan Elmwood area. That's where officers arrested a 19-year-old man. He is not the owner of the vehicle. Beckham Kenneth Severite is charged with dangerous operation causing death and with failing to stop at the scene of an accident.
Not only was he observed or noted to be driving erratically at the time of the collision, this vehicle was still being operated sometime later at another part of the city, still operating at an unsafe manner and with a now damaged front-end vehicle.
Police say they regularly respond to collisions involving cyclists and pedestrians. There was another crash between a bike and a car in West Broadway Thursday afternoon. It's another example advocates say show the city has to do more to make roads safe for them. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Axelrod, CBC News.
RCMP are working to identify an infant after the child's remains were found on an Interlake property off Highway 6. Mounties say the human remains were found on Monday evening around 7:30. Multiple police units, including the Forensic Identification, Police Dog, Search and Rescue, and the Forensic Anthropology teams are involved. They were conducting a search of the area Friday afternoon. Police have not said how they believe the baby died. An organization that brings pride events to rural Manitoba says threats, harassment, and intimidation tactics won't stop them from moving forward. Threats have been leveled against some performers and food truck owners ahead of this weekend's pride events in Altona, forcing some to say it's just too much. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports from Altona.
This Centennial Park here in Altona will have people filled this weekend on Saturday for the Pembina Valley Pride March. A march, a rally and a drag show are among the events planned for this weekend. But now the organizers say many food trucks will not be here because of the homophobic threats they received earlier this week.
Unfortunately, somebody realized who was coming. They sent them an email to one of the trucks and said that they are supporting an act of sin and that they are going to tag the vehicle.
This is Altona's second Pride March of the 4 Pembina Valley Pride has had since 2019. She says the group has hired private security for the event, as this isn't the first time threats have been made.
Unfortunately, gotten to the point that we're used to it.
Altona police are aware of the threats. Police Chief Dan Deffer will be monitoring this weekend's events.
I don't know where the food trucks are coming from or which food trucks they are, but they've chosen to pull out from the event. If they were to reconsider and attend, I mean, just like any other participant, the police would be on scene, and the safety would be provided just the same as any other participant.
I got to get the best lighting. Normally,
Stephen Fontaine, whose drag persona Zamara D is among 10 drag queens performing in Altona. They say they have also been threatened.
When I logged in to look up my Instagram, there was some profile-less messages in regards to me wanting to, or getting them to kill myself. And then I recently just got another one about a couple hours ago, and basically just calling me a pedophile.
For Peter Wolgemuth, a queer resident of Altona, despite these threats, the pride love prevails.
I know last time this happened, there were people who came to our pride event specifically because they heard some of that stuff being said, and their response was, that's not who we are as a community.
There will also be a flag-raising ceremony at the Altona Civic Center and a Rainbow Church service at the Altona United Church. And as per the church statement, there will be no religious speakers at the event, as it will be triggering some community members. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Altona.
Pride north of 55, which usually holds events in Thompson, is not hosting public events this year, citing safety and well-being concerns. The organization says it's run strictly by volunteers and they need more support. Instead of a public event, this year, Pride north of 55 is focusing on advocacy and outreach. There may be a solution to the shortage of personal care home beds in Winnipeg, but it could be years away. As the CBC's Ian Fraze explains, some Winnipeggers are frustrated land for a new care home is just sitting there.
Yes, I did, but I didn't know what I was doing.
The people around the dining table at Anne and Ron Ledwich's home have changed. There's healthcare aides now, but the laughter remains.
They are truly aging in place.
Jane's mother, Anne, was paneled for a personal care home more than a year ago. She got the first spot available, but family says the conditions were brutal, so Anne was brought back home. Jane helps with the care.
The least trauma in the last years of their life, right? And the most joy that they can have.
In Winnipeg, there's fewer personal care home beds now than even a few years ago. Parkview Place, the site of a deadly COVID-19 outbreak, has since closed. This plot of land by Polo Park was supposed to be part of the solution. It was purchased to build a new personal care home, but 8 years later, there's still no sign of it.
For whatever reason, governments, people in control, for whatever reason, didn't take those steps sooner.
Last summer, the former PC government promised to build the Portage Avenue home and 5 others. Then the NDP government put all of them on hold for a review. Since then, the government announced a personal care home in Lac-du-Bonnet, and after that, 2 more in Winnipeg and 1 in rural Manitoba. There's no other details.
I would love to be able to, build a dozen personal care homes every year. We need to make sure that we're taking a smart and thoughtful approach.
The Tories say the NDP is wasting time.
These projects had Treasury Board funding attached to them, so much so that a letter was received.
Any progress is positive.
Sue Vochuk likes that new builds are on the table, but she wants specialty beds at those facilities.
There's also the need for special needs unit, for special need behavior units, for bariatric beds, for young adult units, for acquired brain injury.
Anne, who has dementia, is still waiting for a personal care home bed. Jane feels fortunate her parents can afford to pay for private care at their home. Her daughter wonders if her mom would ever find comfort inside a PCH.
Seeing my parents the way they are in this house is quite joyous for all of us, and so at this point, we don't want them going anywhere.
There'll always be room for them at the dinner table. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Advance voting to fill the Tuxedo seat left vacant by former Premier Heather Stefanson begins tomorrow. Stefanson resigned on May 6th. Her Progressive Conservatives lost to Wabkanu and the NDP in October. Advance voting will be held at the Tuxedo Local Election Office on Roblin Boulevard and St. Demetrius Greek Orthodox Church on Grant Avenue. Voters may cast an early ballot until June 15th. Polls are open 8 to 8 each day except for Sunday, when polls will be open noon to 6. By-election day is June 18th. Danny Smythe is retiring after nearly 8 years as Winnipeg Police Chief. Today, he attended his last police board meeting. CBC's Cameron McLean reports he made a parting request for more officers.
Nearly 8 years ago, Danny Smythe stepped into the role as Winnipeg's new police chief. Today, he made one of his final public appearances in that role.
It has been an honor to have served the community.
His last official day is September 7th. He'll spend the rest of his time wrapping up major files within the service and finishing his term as chair of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police.
Time for a little bit of self-care too, so I'll be taking a little bit of annual leave through the summer as well.
Smythe warned the board about rising calls for service. One of the major challenges facing frontline officers is a spike in retail thefts. New numbers from the police show there were nearly 7,000 incidents last year, a 45% increase over 2022. And the first quarter of this year saw a 42% increase over the same period last year. Inspector Jennifer McKinnon says the reasons for the increase are complicated.
If 2024 continues at this rate, it will far exceed our 2023 numbers.
Chief Smythe says the service is seeing increased demands on police.
And I think some discussion needs to be had about how we might enhance our resources.
Starting tomorrow, the service will step up patrols in the West End, Osborne Village, and Exchange District, using provincial funding to cover overtime costs in response to concerns about crime. While police point to rising calls for service as a reason to hire more officers, Kate Kaler of the Police Accountability Coalition wants to find alternatives to armed officers in situations involving mental health.
At this point in time, we have an opportunity to create real change with new leadership. One person will not be able to change the unhealthy culture that has taken root in the Winnipeg Police Service. However, it would be a great place to start.
A public consultation on finding a new chief, including open houses, will wrap up around the end of June, with a new chief expected to be selected early this fall. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A special investigation by Winnipeg Police has identified dozens of young people who they say are behind much of the rise in random youth violence in the city. Project Surge was launched in response to an increase in robberies and violent offences in the past year. It identified 117 youths responsible for nearly 1,800 incidents since 2023. Investigators identified a smaller core of about 30 who are the biggest repeat offenders. Superintendent Dave Delisle says the goal is to work with agencies to address some of the problems these young people face. But he says the province also needs to get involved.
We need government to look at the conditions of each individual youth that's choosing not to be at home, choosing to be out in the community with others committing crime, and give them wraparound supports to get them off the path that they're on.
Police say it became apparent during Project Surge that many of the youth were involved in high-risk lifestyles, coming from traumatic backgrounds, needing social support. Winnipeg has a new plan to stimulate the creation of downtown housing. City planners are recommending the city waive millions in fees for developers who build residential housing in the center of the city. This would be to recognize the additional cost associated with building downtown. Fees that could be reimbursed include building permits, design reviews, heritage permits, and the loss of paid parking during construction. The plan comes before council in July. Walmart in Brandon was forced to close today after a fire. Crews were called to the building around 12:30 this morning. Well, the fire was put out within minutes. The deputy fire chief says the building sustained structural damage. The Brandon Police Service says chairs at the front entrance of Walmart were deliberately set on fire with a lighter. The blaze then spread to the building. Walmart tells CBC the store is closed for cleanup and repairs, and they will reopen as soon as possible. The father of an inmate who died after being held in solitary confinement at Headingley Correctional Centre is suing the Manitoba government for failing to keep his son safe. Jeffrey Owen Tate died in 2019. An inquest concluded he died by suicide after spending 23 days in segregation. The lawsuit filed by his father seeks damages from the province for members of the family. The statement of claim alleges staff at the jail failed to properly monitor Tate's condition on the day he died. The province has not yet filed a statement of defense in court. A former chief of Peguis First Nation has asked the federal court to set aside the results of an election he lost. CBC's Bartley Peguis reports.
Peguis First Nation is Manitoba's most populous First Nation. It's now the subject of an election challenge. In 2023, Peguis voted Glenn Hudson out as the band's chief and replaced him with Stan Bird. Hudson has asked the Federal Court of Canada to hold a judicial review of the election and set aside the 2023 result. In court documents, Hudson says the election wasn't fair because 178 votes at an advance poll were nullified, 2 other advance polls were cancelled, and, he argues, there were problems with mail-in ballots. In an affidavit, Hudson blames Bird and his supporters for the nullified votes and cancelled polls, claiming they made threats and engaged in intimidation. In a response, Bird denies playing any role in affecting the advance polls and says there were no threats or intimidation. Lawyers for Hudson and Bird declined further comment. A special sitting of federal court is slated for Winnipeg in July. Bartley Peguis, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Louis Riel School Division's newest trustee vows to be inclusive as he steps into a role left vacant by his controversial predecessor. Francine Champagne resigned in November after being suspended 3 times for what the board called transphobic social media posts. Ian Walker won with a large majority of the more than 2,400 votes cast in Thursday's by-election. 5 candidates were vying for the job. Walker received 64% of the vote. His closest rival, Sandra St. Cyr, received nearly 18%. A street in St. Vital is getting a second name in honor of Canadian icon and music legend Ray St. Germain. Surrounded by his friends and family at the honorary renaming ceremony, the 84-year-old gave a special performance.
Now or never, come hold me tight. Kiss me, my darling, please be mine tonight.
St. Michael Road, where St. Germain's childhood home is located, is now called Big Sky Country Way. It's named after his TV show, Big Sky Country, which ran for 13 years. In a statement, the Manitoba Métis Federation says St. Germain and his show brought pride to the Métis people. St. Germain says he is touched by the gesture and thanked the city and the Métis community for making this happen.
I want to thank you all for coming down. What a wonderful pleasure. I didn't expect it to be this big. I really didn't. So many friends, so many relatives. Thank you so much for everything.
The city says the renaming is in honor of Germain's contributions to the music industry. CBC weather specialist Riley Laychuk is back. And Riley, it is warm in our studios today. We're having a little issue here. So we're a little warm, but it's also been quite nice outside as well.
Quite nice outside as well. It's going to be a nice weekend, too, if you're looking for a good deal out there, Brittany. Not giveaway weekend, but if you have any yard sale, here's what you need to know. Yes, I love a deal. So I don't know, maybe you're looking for a telescope or a sled here. Or a sailboat. I don't know, maybe you're selling a sailboat. Whatever you're selling, or whatever you're looking to buy, it's going to be a pretty nice weekend for it. Outside chance we could see a rumble of thunder through the day on Saturday. Otherwise, we're looking at a mainly sunny 22 degrees. Sunday looking partly cloudy as well, 19 in the afternoon. So pretty nice day either way. We're looking at winds really dying off as well. Stepping back to the last couple of days where we've been tracking some really heavy rainfall through northern Manitoba. Here's some of the numbers I wanted to show you. To Dooley Lake, almost 109 millimeters of rain as of 11 this morning over the course of about the last 2.5 days or so. So yeah, some pretty significant rainfall in the north. Gillam and Churchill right around the 40 millimeter mark, while Thompson getting about 24 millimeters of rain. So a good soaking rain through parts of the north, maybe too much of a good thing in some cases with that 108 millimeters. Here's what we're looking at now. This is still some lingering showers across northern Manitoba. Here in the south, though, we're looking at, as forecast, a few pop-up thunderstorms and nothing severe in nature, nothing worth canceling your plans over, but certainly we are seeing some of that on the west side of Lake Manitoba and into the Interlake region, where we are seeing some heavier pockets of rain as the evening rolls on. We'll see that start to kind of die off a little bit. So by the time we reach even midnight, that clears out. Starting Saturday, mainly sunny, and we're expecting a mainly sunny sky throughout the day for your Saturday. Still a few lingering showers through much of northern Manitoba, but that does start to taper off as we get through the later part of Saturday into Sunday. We start mainly sunny across much of the province once again. A little bit of a band of cloud moving through, but other than that, we're looking at a fairly nice day as we head through Sunday into Monday, where we could see a bit more instability in the west. Best chance for a little bit more rain comes to Winnipeg and the Red River Valley on Tuesday, which we'll be tracking as we head through the next few days here. In terms of rain to come for northern Manitoba, just looking at what's falling over the next 48 hours or so, 5 to 10 millimeters generally. I think this 16 is a little bit much in the Lynn Lake area, except we are looking at some of that maybe in thunderstorms that do happen to fall. So 22 degrees in Winnipeg right now. West winds at about 20. We've seen the winds start to back off a little bit breezy today, and we are looking at things kind of dying off as we get through the evening hours here tonight. So west 10. The winds overnight tonight, mostly clear skies, 9 degrees. Yes, an outside chance as we head through the evening of maybe a rumble of thunder or a few raindrops here and there, but really nothing to write home about. Like I said, 13 first thing in the morning, a mainly sunny day, and a risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon tomorrow. And we're looking at 22 degrees, pretty much seasonal for this time of the year. 19 for Sunday, then we're looking at 24s and 20s with periods of rain on Tuesday, Brittany. And back up to seasonal and 23 degrees on Wednesday.
All right, Riley, we're going to keep an eye, or you're going to keep an eye on that system that's coming through. Thanks so much. A tree of hope is now growing in the backyard of Fort Richmond Collegiate. The oak tree is surrounded by healing and medicinal plants. It's an idea 2 former students came up with back in 2021. They say it recognizes the deep connections Indigenous peoples have to the land and makes a sacred space to help all feel like they belong.
The Tree of Hope is officially open.
The Tree of Hope is truly a testament to what reconciliation looks like and what we want it to look like. The tree itself, we planned everything meticulously, especially with the three medicines that we were using planting around the tree. We have sage, we have got tobacco, and we've got sweet grass. The truth and reconciliation aspect behind that came from when Divya and I, well, it's based on our story truly, we became really best friends when we were younger, and we grew together, and now we use each other to lift each other up. And that's what we really want for these communities that enter Fort Richmond Collegiate. It's not just an Indigenous person's journey to teach what truth and reconciliation is. It's for all of us to enjoy it.
Everything was planted with intention, and I think that's what's so beautiful about it. So the wheel here, it's a circle and supposed to represent the medicine wheel, and there's medicines around the tree that give it that immunity, if you will. And this space is supposed to be a sacred space for people to enjoy the oak tree as it grows. The benches were put in there with intention of looking at the tree and having that sense of community around it.
We want to show a commitment to not only our Indigenous students, but to acts of reconciliation. This helps us get there. The more Indigenous pieces we can have in a school, the more we can help to provide safe spaces, understanding, support, teachings, all of that, so that not only our Indigenous students feel safe and a feeling of belonging, the other students are learning, and that's a big piece as us coming together as a community.
Border strike on hold for now. While mediation talks continue, the union that represents 9,000 Canada Border Services Agency workers says members won't be walking off the job yet. Coming up, when workers are now planning to hit the picket line if a deal isn't reached. Stay with us. The deadline for a possible strike by thousands of Canada's border workers has been pushed to next Wednesday. Meantime, mediation efforts on a new contract will continue. The workers were set to strike as of 4 p.m. Eastern today. The union says key issues include pay parity with other law enforcement agencies, remote work options, and pension benefits. 90% of Canada Border Services Agency workers cannot technically strike because they're deemed essential essential workers. But they can work to rule, which could cause delays at border crossings and airports. In Montreal, pro-Palestinian demonstrators briefly occupied an administration building last night at McGill University until police moved in to clear them out. Police in riot gear used tear gas and tore down barricades. They say they arrested 13 people for breaking and entering, as well as 2 for interfering with police officers. Protesters who occupied the building were calling on the university to cut ties with Israel. Today, the encampment at McGill is still in place. The university says it supports the right to freedom of expression, but condemns what it calls, quote, the use of intimidating, aggressive, harassing, or illegal tactics, such as those seen yesterday. A shocking case of child neglect in Eastern Ontario has left a community with many lingering questions. Last week, first responders found a baby dead inside a home. Police say the infant was abandoned, along with a toddler who survived the ordeal. Phyllis Chin has more on the family's troubled history and what this tragedy reveals about the gaps in child protection. But first, a warning: details in this story are disturbing.
Behind the scenic Ontario waterfront, unimaginable tragedy. In downtown Kingston, authorities found 2 young boys inside an apartment, alone, without their parents, in squalid conditions. The youngest, not quite 8 months old, was dead. His brother, 3 years old, was severely dehydrated.
He was naked and had feces on his feet and whatnot.
Their 32-year-old mother was located 45 kilometers away in the town of Napanee. She's now charged with negligence causing death, 2 counts of abandoning a child under 10 and failing to provide the necessaries of life. The father spoke to CBC News. We aren't identifying him to protect the identity of the children.
I was nauseous. I couldn't understand why she would do anything like this.
He and his ex were living apart. They have 4 other children who were removed by Children's Services in the past.
I was under the impression they were being well taken care of.
But neighbors disagree.
There's quite a few of us in this building that called Children's Aid and told them what was going on. Oh, well, we'll go and look into it. They come and say, okay, he's not screaming, so we'll leave.
Court records obtained by CBC News show a pattern of family dysfunction that dates back nearly a decade. The father has been charged 3 times for allegedly assaulting his ex. He was acquitted in 2017. The second charge in 2020 was withdrawn after he agreed to stay away from her. Then, in 2023, he was found guilty. He disputes all of the charges.
She has a history of calling the police just to get me out of the house.
In a statement, the local Children's Aid said it is, quote, aware of a tragedy having occurred in our community, and we offer our heartfelt condolences to all those impacted. The surviving 3-year-old is expected to recover physically, but his father says the boy can't understand what happened to his baby brother.
He believed his brother was just sleeping.
Phyllis Chin, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, Game 1 in the Stanley Cup Finals gets underway tomorrow night. Well, the Jets were knocked out early. Winnipeggers have 2 choices: cheer for the only Canadian team left, or go with Florida and Jets' former head coach, Paul Maurice. More on the matchup coming up. Hockey fans will be tuning in tomorrow night for the start of the Stanley Cup Finals. And this time, there is a Canadian team to cheer for when the Edmonton Oilers take on the Florida Panthers. A Canadian team hasn't won the Cup in over 30 years. The CBC's Sam Sampson is in Sunrise, Florida, with more.
Any Oilers fans hoping to come to games 1 and 2 are going to have to pass through Panthers territory. That's right, we are in Sunrise, Florida for the Stanley Cup Final. The Edmonton Oilers are the only Canadian team left in the playoffs, of course. That makes them Canada's team. Now, can they cut that 31-year drought short? It has been 31 years since any Canadian team has hoisted the Stanley Cup. The last team to do so was the Montreal Canadiens back in 1993. Now, the team itself, the Edmonton Oilers, the last time they even made it this far in the playoffs was 2006. That's right, 18 years ago, they faced off against the Carolina Hurricanes and they lost in a heartbreaking Game 7. So with that in mind, fans are fired up and cheering on the Edmonton Oilers.
I'm gonna need to cheer from all Oilers, of course, because my heart is in Edmonton.
As soon as the game ended, the last game ended, we just booked the flights and we figured it out from there. So we were thinking about it since Friday when the games were closed. And he made the calls, pulled the trigger.
I think it's romantic for everybody, really. I mean, I'm sure we're not the only couple that had a first date going to an Oilers game.
So when you think of Florida, you might not think of hockey right away, but maybe it's time to reconsider that. A team from this state has been in the Stanley Cup Final for 5 consecutive years, including this year. The Florida Panthers, this is their second time back in a row trying to win the Cup. Last year, the Vegas Golden Knights defeated them, and so they are hungry for a win, but the Oilers say they are ready for a battle.
Growing up, everyone dreams about winning the Cup, and you know that's something that they're chasing and we're all chasing. And obviously, with how good of players they are, and you know they want to cement their legacy as well, right? And they know that to be one of the greats, you know, winning is part of that too. It's the hardest trophy to win in sports, and just a great opportunity here.
2 things you want to know if you are an Oilers fan coming down here. One, between Edmonton and Sunrise, Florida, is the largest geographical difference between Stanley Cup Final cities ever in NHL history, so get ready for a trek. The other thing, look, if you're from the prairies, you are in for some heat and some humidity, so get ready. Game 1 is on Saturday. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Sunrise, Florida.
We asked Winnipeggers who they'll be cheering for. Will it be McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers or former Jets coach Paul Maurice and the Panthers? CBC's Jim Agapito went to find out.
Okay, Curtis, I got to ask. Stanley Cup Finals is coming up. Who are you cheering for and why?
So that's a tough one because I'm Canadian, so the right answer is to say the Edmonton Oilers. I think they're due because of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but at the same time, I'm a Winnipegger, and Paul Maurice spent a lot of time here, so I can go either way. I'd be happy if Edmonton wins for Canada, but I'll also be happy if Florida wins for Winnipeg. Paul Maurice.
Who will you be cheering for and why?
I'm cheering for the Panthers because I'm a salty Kings fan. The Oilers eliminated my Kings 3 consecutive years in a row, so I also like Tkachuk, so I'd love to see him get a cup. He's old school hockey, tough and gritty, and definitely it'd be awesome to see him get one, but you can't go wrong with McDavid getting a cup. That would be nice to see. He definitely deserves one. You don't want him to be one of those players that goes without one, that's for sure, so won't be too bad if the Oilers win it, but definitely want to see the Panthers and Tkachuk get it.
Who are you cheering for, the Florida Panthers or the Edmonton Oilers, and why?
I'm going for the Panthers.
Okay, why the Panthers?
I just think that they've come so close the last little while, and with the coaching change, you know, they've got the dedication, and I think they have the drive to win the cup.
Who are you cheering for?
Cheering for Edmonton Oilers.
Okay, why?
More Canadian players, and it would be nice to see Connor get a Stanley Cup.
Okay, Stanley Cup Finals coming up. It's the Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. Who are you cheering for and why?
I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers, mainly because they're a Canadian team, and I don't really watch hockey, so I'm just going to cheer for Canadian teams.
Who are you cheering for and why?
Well, I'd like to see Edmonton do it. I have a lot of history, actually, with the Edmonton Oilers. In 2001, me and my brother and father, we went to Edmonton, and we got taken into the dressing room, and the entire team signed a jersey for us, and I still have this jersey to this day. So I would like to see the Oilers do it. You know, it'd be nice to get the Stanley Cup back in Canada. Obviously, it's not Winnipeg, and I'm a big Jets fan, but I'd like to see Edmonton do it.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be hearing many "Go Oilers, go" around town, but certainly doesn't feel like hockey weather
No,
with
it does not.
what we've been seeing outside. But I guess maybe some of those dreary days that we had with the rain.
Yeah, exactly. A very dreary week, so to speak. Raining cats and dogs, if you want to put it that way. Here is a look at your forecast for tomorrow. Not exactly the dogs today. I thought we'd end the week with something a little bit different and a couple of cats. Mateo is the one that's sort of hiding here amongst these tigers, and Rex is the one who's poking his head out right here. Thank you, Al and Pat, for sending this picture, and you can keep sending your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca. I've got a lot more animals up my sleeve where that came from. Tomorrow's forecast, fairly seasonal for this time of the year. We're looking at 13 degrees first thing in the morning. I say the possibility or the outside chance of a thunderstorm later in the afternoon. I think this icon is overdoing it a little bit, but certainly the risk there. Aside from that, a mainly sunny day tomorrow. Seasonal across southern Manitoba today, 23s in both Winnipeg. We actually got up to 22.6 this afternoon in Winnipeg this afternoon, 22 in Portage, and a lot cooler air to the north where we are still seeing that onshore flow from Hudson Bay, really bringing the temperatures down, especially for areas like Churchill, Gillam, even Thompson seeing some rain today at 10 degrees. So a bit of a cool one for parts of the province. We'll start to see our pattern shifting and much drier conditions ahead for tonight. Risk we could see some thunder showers, most of that fizzling off as we get through into the evening hours tonight. Overnight, 7 degrees for Verdon and Brandon into the Wasagaming area, 9 degrees in Dauphin overnight tonight, 9 in Winnipeg as well, and 10 in Kenora overnight tonight. In the north, we are looking at temperatures once again really close to that freezing mark along the Hudson Bay coast again, with the possibility of some fog overnight tonight along the Hudson Bay coast and in Churchill in particular. Otherwise, on and off showers through Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Thompson, Grand Rapids, mainly cloudy overnight tonight at 6 degrees. We're looking at a little bit of cloud cover to start tomorrow and some scattered showers, some periods of rain still making its way across northern Manitoba. 12 degrees by lunchtime in Norway House, and really we don't get much warmer than that, but we still do see some rain into northeastern Manitoba tomorrow. In the south, a bit of a different story, mainly sunny skies to start the day. We stay mainly sunny throughout the day, but as I said earlier, watch for some of that instability as we get through the afternoon, with the risk we could see some showers. Not anything worth canceling your plans over tomorrow, but certainly just be aware, keep your eyes to the skies. We could see a little bit of unstable weather throughout the afternoon. Here's your forecast for Sunday. 18 degrees in Brandon, mainly sunny skies. 17 in Dauphin, also mainly sunny. Thompson looking at a sunny 19 as well, and that sunshine continuing into northwestern Ontario with temperatures right around seasonal, Brittany, as we get through the rest of the weekend as well.
All right, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, missing in music. A new study shows women have been underplayed on Canadian radio for the last decade. The report comes as the country marks Canadian Music Week. That story when we return after this short break. A new study released for Canadian Music Week says songs performed by women, especially women of color, were played far less on radio than songs by men over the last decade. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson takes a look at why it could be happening and how some artists are reacting.
Can I be that one thing? Can I?
Singer Katie Tupper came from Saskatchewan to Canadian Music Week in Toronto, an important annual showcase for new artists. But she's also hoping to grow her fan base the old-fashioned way by getting some radio play.
I think as a developing artist, that's like a big chunk of what your income is until you recoup on streams, until your shows are selling out and all of that.
Your love is like a paradise.
But entering that radio rotation in Canada may be tricky for female musicians, according to a new study. It looked at 150 most played songs on Canadian radio stations between 2013 and 2023 and found that women got a fraction of the play men got in all genre.
We see that country, alternative rock, and active rock play more songs by men than those by women. And then on the other hand, we see top 40 radio, mainstream AC, and hot AC. And while much more diverse there, women for the last 10 years have still been sort of underrepresented in those spaces.
16 carriages. And that's despite the omnipresence of female superstars like Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and Adele. Experts say it's an industry-wide problem. Record labels have to choose to invest in women, signing them and then promoting them to the radio stations. There's also the matter of the disappearing middle-class musician, those who are not multimillionaires but are working and have some fan following.
You know, it's not only incredibly expensive to live, but if you're somebody who works in a precarious field like music, those effects are felt differently and more powerfully for somebody who is also experiencing marginalization based on gender, race, and class.
But young artists like Katie Tupper are working hard to break that glass ceiling, hoping to make music radio a place where all kinds of listeners can hear all kinds of voices. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Pat Sajak will take his final turn as host of Wheel of Fortune. Letter turner Vanna White paid an emotional tribute to her co-host and friend of 41 years.
You're like a brother to me, and I consider you a true lifelong friend who I will always adore. I love you, Pat.
After 8,000 episodes and countless spins of the wheel, Pat Sajak is packing it in as the renowned host of the iconic game show. He thanks viewers for allowing him into their homes night after night, year after year. Sajak announced his pending retirement last year. Ryan Seacrest is set to succeed him, and Vanna White will stay on as co-host at least until 2026. Another breezy day across southern Manitoba. Riley Lachuk is back with our last check on the weekend forecast. Stay with us.
Well, here's a look at your day planner for Saturday, and we're looking at another mainly sunny day across southern Manitoba. We're actually looking at a pretty nice weekend for us in the south. As I showed you, a little bit of rain still in the north, but waking up to 13 degrees tomorrow in Winnipeg. West winds at 10. Not as windy tomorrow, with winds out of the northwest 15 gusting to 30, with that chance of an isolated thunderstorm as we get through the later afternoon once again. Tomorrow we're looking at 19 degrees, mainly sunny skies on the way for Sunday. Cloud does start to build in on Monday, 24 degrees. That is ahead of a weak system that will bring us some light rain or some showers periodically through the day. On Tuesday, that starts to taper off as we get through the overnight period Tuesday into Wednesday. 23 degrees, the high on Wednesday, and then we're looking at sunny conditions to wrap up next week as well. Well, tonight we want to leave you on a bit of a different note here. Singer Ray St. Germain, as you saw earlier, received an honorary street naming in Winnipeg.
So we felt it was only fitting that the last word of the week goes to the homegrown music icon, who sang for the crowd earlier this afternoon. We will see you back here on Monday. We hope you have a wonderful weekend.
See ya.
It's now or never. Come hold me tight. Kiss me, my darling. Please be mine tonight. Tomorrow it will be too late. It's now or never. My love won't